Roll call. Ooh, thank you for doing that. Marcia Porter Norton.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Just 1 second.
There you go.
Okay, sorry. It's like you think after like how many years of the pandemic, but anyway, I'm here on Zoom.
Kevin Hall. Here. Gilda Yazzie.
Here.
Eva Henson.
Here.
Katie Sickles.
Present.
Brenna Moreland.
Here.
Mark Garcia.
Online.
Clark Craig. I will consider his absence excused if he remains absent. And Patrick Bond. I'm here. Any identification of any actual or perceived conflicts of interest? Hearing none. Next item is public comment. Anybody want to speak? Lori? No? Okay. Hearing none, we'll close the public comment section. Next item is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes or edits to the agenda as proposed? Hearing none, I'll consider a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
A motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Katie, beat you, sorry. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Approval of the consent agenda consisting of the December 2023 minutes and the December 2023 financial statements. Are there any questions, proposed edits or changes? Hearing none, I'll consider a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion. Approval of the consent agenda, which includes the December 2023 minutes and December 2023 financial statements.
Do I have a second? Is that Mark?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Public presentations and engagement, adventure in conversion. Jenn?
Jenn is logging in, she says.
Okay. Reminds me of Jurassic Park with them. Well, we go ahead and go on updates. So Sarah Tober, Program Director report.
Yes, wanted to hold some space on the agenda for other things that kind of fall outside of our
Sarah, could you speak up just a little bit?
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. Just wanted to hold some space for items that kind of fall outside of our agenda items. We are following on the strategic plan. We've created a goal tracker, which we'll talk about later. And so that goal tracker is based on the strategic plan and some of the scope of work. Last year, when we created the goal tracker, it was fully based on the scope of work because we didn't really have a guiding strategic plan. So this year you'll see kind of a mix of that, and anything that falls outside the goal tracker, I'll try and make sure we have updates on it within the director report. So let's start out. The Workforce Housing 101 webinar series has been very successful for us. So that has been hosted by the RHA. In using the technical assistance grant, we were able to provide 3 separate webinars now that live on the RHA website. The first one was readiness to proceed, and we had 17 registrants for that. The next one was for sale strategies, which we also had in Spanish. And we had 24 registrants for that. And then the next one is going to be finance strategies with CHAFA, which we're actually getting folks on the Front Range interested in joining this webinar because CHAFA has no plans currently of going over some of those finance strategies in another education series. So that'll be fun. January 26th, 10:30 a.m. And then again, those webinars and the associated presentation materials live on the RHA website. The 3-year workforce housing plan is still being updated. We expect to have a draft for the board either in February or March. What's taking a little more precedence is our annual report, which we plan to have a draft to the board by the February meeting and give the board a month for input, changes, edits, and then have it finalized and to print by March at the latest. So that's kind of where we stand there. The DOLA grant, we may talk about it a little bit more later, but Mark Garcia made an application on behalf of the RHA to this DOLA grant, and we made the application for about $200,000, which is the maximum you can make. There was an LOI submitted in December. They've invited Mark to apply fully. So we are helping to complete that application that is due February 15th. We will be asking all of the partners for a letter of support, and we will be providing a template for each one of you. Just a heads up on that. The housing needs assessment, Jen is saying the link doesn't work. Can y'all resend her the link? The housing needs assessment, I think there's a need for it more now than ever, as we're really wanting to understand very accurate numbers for the county. So we have had conversations with CHAFA about potentially funding that initiative. And we have some examples of RFPs. So we're putting together an RFP on behalf of the RHA to get a housing needs assessment completed for the county with specific focus in each jurisdiction. And as we're putting that together, if you have special requests in terms of the kind of data that we need, please let us know. This is going to be important for Prop 123 applications and any kind of grant applications where we have to have a housing needs assessment completed. The housing summit, I just wanted to check back in with the board. We have April 30th tentatively held for a housing summit and just want to make sure that that is still a good date for everyone as we work to lock down locations, time, and we'll be presenting a tentative agenda to the board next month.
Chair Vaughn.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't hear the date. What was it?
April 30th.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I don't have any conflicts.
Yeah, me,
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. And we will work on locking down a location. And again, we'll have a draft agenda for you all next month. If there are topics though, again, that you're like, Sarah, we really need this, please let me know. And I'll be sure to get it into the draft agenda. And then the last item is that Sarah and I plan to attend the Colorado Mountain Housing Coalition Housing Summit in April. That'll be at Princeton Hot Springs. It was an incredible conference last year. I learned a lot. There's a lot of great connections to be made with state resources. So we plan on attending again. And just as a FYI to anyone else who might be interested in attending, it is April 14th through 16th. And if you remember, Lisa Bloomcrest Palmer is the president of the CMHC. And there's a number of folks around the state who are involved with that summit. So
It's Colorado
Mountain Housing Coalition. And last year, you know, Housing Colorado is obviously the biggest, and Eva spoke at a panel there last year. But there wasn't any focus on rural communities there last year. So I'm glad that we were able to have the opportunity to go to the Colorado Mountain Housing Coalition because they were fully focused on the rural resort issues, which are somewhat unique, obviously, to the Front Range. So that's all I have.
Jen's still trying to catch
She said she wasn't able to log in, and so now she's walking over.
it. So Sarah, you're still up for steer committee update.
Oh, yeah. You know what? You want to keep going? Okay, steer committee updates. I have sent emails to all of the folks identified by the board to be potential steer committee members. The list that was in your packet and that has been provided to you all is still pretty rough. So it's in flux, it can change. There's gonna be people who can't participate. I'm already starting to include on the Google Doc those status updates of folks who are going to participate or not. Like for instance, Christopher Coleman, 9R district is going to be participating. Mike Fouts is a yes. So we are getting in some good yeses. I did meet with Greg Phillips. Eva, thank you for that connection. He's also going to be there and has interest in us also participating with LPH CIC.
With
La Plata Health. Healthcare improvement. Let's see, I just had it. LP, La Plata Healthcare Improvement Coalition.
thank you.
There it is. And they made quite a bit of progress in that coalition. There's like almost 80 people involved, and it also includes the League of Women Voters. So they have a specific committee that is focused on housing, childcare, transportation. So we think there'll be some synergy there as they've done a lot of data gathering around the work that they're doing. So I'm excited to have collaboration on both ends. But so this steer committee list is obviously, you know, it's gonna be a little in flux until folks really commit to it. And we have a meeting scheduled here, January 30th at 8:30. And at that time, we will go over with the potential members what the expectation is, what the issue is, what we're looking to solve here. And we'll set a standard schedule for each month for meetings as well. But our feeling is that, you know, we can still continue to add some folks if they've been forgotten off of this list. And do invite the board to continue to participate in the culling of this list.
Sarah, do you feel like you can get a full complement of folks by the 30th?
I do, yeah. We've received a few yeses so far, but we've been in conversation with a lot of folks, preparing them that this is happening too, so. We feel like we can, and we're gonna hope for the best on that one. But this first one is really gonna be kind of the expectation, can you meet it, type thing with the committee members.
I would just want to have, you know, as good a participation as we can get at that kickoff meeting, or else we may need to delay it, just to make sure that folks kind of, in my mind, have a good sense of the direction.
Yeah, and we'll send a calendar invite to folks and see where the RSVPs are. If we're looking, again, this is my understanding from the board, you know, we're inviting about 30 folks to participate, but with the expectation that we'll get, you know, 15 to 17 on this steer committee. So if we have participation of at least 20 folks for the 30th, do you feel like that's adequate? Okay, that'll be our benchmark then.
Is that it on the steer committee?
Yes, that's about it. You all have seen the overview and everything like that. If you would like a copy of the email that was sent out to the steer committee folks and the attached overview, I'm happy to share that. That's kind of where we stand today.
Thank you. So we'll go back up and Jen, thanks for coming over. If you couldn't catch in, so you're up.
Hi, sorry about that. It's been one of those days where technology is not very friendly. I'll keep it really short, but we just wanted to come over and give an update on a new housing resource that'll be rolling out soon. And Commissioner Porter Norton, if you even want to cue this up a little bit, feel free on the adventure end. Do you want to do that?
I sure can, Jen. Sorry I can't be there in person, everyone. I think everybody knows that the issues of unhoused and a lack of workforce and affordable housing are tied together, and completely acknowledging the RHA is focusing on workforce and affordability projects in some cases as well. But when we closed Purple Cliffs in 2022, we said that we would stay at the table in problem solving. We wrote the community a letter that year that said, this has to happen for the following reasons, but we're not walking away from solutions. At the end of 22, we put out an RFP to mobilize $1 million of our 11 million of ARPA money towards unhoused solutions. And the Community Investment Alliance and Jen's team responded and started to look at the adventure end. She can go into the details, and I'm really proud and happy to say that on Monday, we approved a loan of $500,000, and we hope that gets this purchased along with all the other funding options. One of the things I said from the dais on Tuesday is one of the reasons I'm willing to do it. It's an unconventional loan. It's 1% for 40 years, so that's pretty unconventional. But we have to really look at this problem in new ways. And B, Jen and her credibility and everything she and her team have done in other communities, let alone our own, really changed my lens and influenced my lens. So really hoping our community can have one community writ large. We know people who are homeless in and around Durango come from throughout La Plata County. And so Jen, I'll turn it over to you, but we're anxious for this housing resource in our community.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, La Plata County, so much for the work on this. I really came here because you're a regional agency, and this is going to be a new regional solution. So I know that you've got housing instability in all corners of the county, and this is a model we never had before. And so I just want to clarify what the model is and let you know where we're at in the process. And then if you're interested in being a partner moving forward, we still have plenty of room at the table for partners. The idea came out of COVID, blessing and a curse, but we learned a lot and we got really innovative on how to do some things. And one of the things that came out of the whole COVID movement was we are repurposing motels all over the country. We're doing it in Durango. That makes sense. It makes a lot more sense to grab a motel. We can pay $115,000 a door at Adventure Inn with 1 or 2% money and make that an affordable lodging solution for many, many years. Why is it lodging and not housing? Partly the model and partly zoning. But honestly, it works better as a motel because this is not a place for people to live forever. This is a place for kids from 9R who are cold. Get them inside. Workforce on the edge in the weeds. Get them somewhere before they are on the streets, right? And so it really is a prevention model. Homelessness is on the rise and it's not going to go down anytime soon. You know, we show you all the charts in the world. We all know this, that the higher the income prices are, the higher your rate of housing instability is. So that's where we're at. Sarah and I talk a lot about data. We'll get you some new data, but we all intuitively know and see this right now in our community. So the nonprofit is acquiring. We've got 5 funding sources. I don't think any city, you're next. And I'm not kidding. We'll be like to talk to you. Everybody has to help. Everybody has to help. And Marcia, you did such a beautiful job at the commission meeting explaining the county's finances. I mean, no one entity can write big checks, right? So anyway, for Southwest, Region 9. I mean, it really is kind of a fun initiative. Once we close and a few months in, I'd love to do a site visit, invite you over. And I also think we've got some lessons learned on how we stack capital on this. We've never done this before. So we're going to acquire 25 rooms, probably sometime in February. And then we also receive funds two different buckets from the state, and one bucket gives us 2 years to really prove the model and have some wiggle room on operations. Our primary partner is Manna, but we have many other partners in the community. They are our navigation center, and so we want people to go through the navigation center to be referred to the property. You cannot be admitted to the property unless you have access to housing resources. So literally what's happening right now, and this has been going on for a while, but it's gotten so much worse. Somebody can have a housing voucher, somebody can have rapid housing grants, and they can't find anywhere to take those, right? This is that solution. They can stay with us while we navigate and find more solutions. It's a beautiful bridge program to Best Western, right? A lot of the folks that we'll take on could eventually exit the first cycle of folks over to the Best Western when it opens in a year. The county's investment of over $500,000 will leverage about 4 million in state funds, and we are getting the last buckets of the transformational money. So we're very excited about that. Fort Lewis College is a partner. The hospital, we're working on partnership with them. 9R indirectly is a partner. We want Mayfield, Ignacio, the city, just we're here. Again, we have a model for the next several months, but it will be fluid over the next couple of years. So that's bridge programming. And in the future, if we hadn't moved so quickly, I would have come to RHA, asked you for a letter of support and all those things, but I think hopefully we're there. But these are the kind of initiatives we want to bring to you all and get support. So, yeah.
Jen, could you clarify, so it's lodging, so is it term limited lodging?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so that's different than, let's say, a Sparrow.
Very different,
And
very different.
Is there services provided at the?
Light touch, so different populations, different services, different model, great question. No leases, this isn't housing, right? This is lodging. So Manna refers, we have a contract with Manna, they refer to us for 14 days at a time. We can extend past 14 days as many times as we need to. We suspect the first round of folks that come in for help will need 6 months minimum because there's no housing. But all of this fits within the existing land use code of the city. And so and honestly, it's just a better model for us. So it works really well for us as well. Yeah, any other questions on? Oh, different population too. It's not the hardest to serve. You would never do a hardest to serve population in a motel with external corridors. So this is very intentionally people who are primarily working or disabled, right? This is not chronic homeless at all. These are people falling into homelessness that we're catching and preventing. Sorry, so very different. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, so you mentioned Manna was a referral agency. Are there any other referral agencies or just the one?
They're the primary, but Fort Lewis and School District and Diana Ford, who's amazing, they're all gonna come through Manna. So those are all other partners, but we have to have one kind of mothership, and Manna agreed to do that. Thank goodness.
So you talk about acquiring 25 rooms, or a specific location or?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So it's called the Adventure Inn, which is appropriately named. It has been nothing but a grand adventure for several months. It's a great name. It's very cheery and it's in beautiful mint condition. Eva, plug your ears. There's nothing that has to be improved immediately. So it's the total opposite of Best Western. So that's why you can turn a property like this in 7 months.
Where is it?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's North Main, 3500 North Main. So
Texas barbecue.
it is. It's before Texas Barbecue. So it was the Best Western, but it's now something else. And then the Siesta and then this and then Ski Barn. So it's part of those old mom and pop hotels on North Main. So.
Is there an estimate of the number of people in our community that would fit this model? Do we have a number?
We do, but it's, and this is often what we do with special needs housing or homelessness, is it's really hard to capture the data. So we go to our partners and we ask them, like, what's going on this month? There's over 100 households that could have been referred the first month we called them. Yeah, so we think this is, again, it's a pilot, but I just think it's something that we've learned a lot about in terms of collaboration and piloting and modeling and whatnot. But not worried about demand, but we got to get rid of the debt. So we're buying it with a lot of very low interest debt, and we're going to want to take that debt out over time. Yeah.
Any questions from those online?
I just have one last comment that one of the reasons we wanted to support this model is the idea of preventing homelessness, obviously. And another reason is that the managed camp discussion that went on and on and on and was quite frankly quite ugly. We looked at 42 different sites for a managed camp. The county at one point was looking at 3 sites, including purchasing one that didn't work. And what we learned in that is our community has just flat out rejected that model of a managed camp. I mean, yay or nay, good or bad, we don't have to debate that today, but this model is very, very different than a managed camp. That's not what it is, as Jen has explained. And partly it's just community feedback, you know, that was not going to work. And so I really appreciate the ingenuity here of Community Investment Alliance and MANA and others to say, well, if that's not going to work, what is? And maybe we can stem the tide of seeing the people that are now sleeping outside in, you know, sub-zero temperatures. And that's another gap that our community is going to have to take a hard look at. But for now, community safety is right up there with a goal of housing people.
Anybody else online? Clark, Nicole, Mark?
No comments from me. Thank you.
Yep, none for me. My apologies for being late.
No worries. Thank you. Hearing none. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Exciting.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks all the partners.
Pat, if I may too, Jen is about to head off to DC to give congressional.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Jen is about to head off to DC to give congressional testimony related to the economics around housing. So pretty exciting stuff.
Great.
Represent us well.
And the economics around here, around housing.
You know, it's funny, I was actually invited by Heinrich in New Mexico. But guess what? Our economics are pretty darn similar, right, Mike French? So it'll be really fun. And I'm the only one on the, where there's 4 panelists, I'm the only one that actually does housing development. So there's a bunch of academics. I'm like, yes.
I was talking to a friend of mine whose father owns the Orr House, and he recently had a fire and the issues regarding insurance adjustment. And I said, just make sure that the insurance adjuster, if they're from a large market, understands our costs here related to construction costs and labor.
Yeah.
Because it's a different picture altogether. Yes. Very true. Great. Thanks, Jen. Catalyst Fund updates, Mike and Sarah.
Yeah, so some good news. We got word from DIDF after the presentation that we gave them on the proposal that they decided to split the money between the FLC Foundation and the RHA. So we estimate it to be just shy of $2 million because they're going to take out some fees, attorney fees, brokerage fees. So when it's all split, I think we're looking at potentially $950,000 to the RHA for a revolving loan fund. It still has to go. So this is going to be the recommendation from the executive committee of the DIDF. It still has to go to vote for general membership to DIDF of the dissolution of DIDF and the distribution of funds, remaining funds, to approve the recommendation of the executive committee. That vote will happen February 7th. And so they need a small majority to do that. I think 15 votes is all they need just based on their bylaws, because they don't get a ton of participation. A lot of the former DIDF members have left, some have passed. But we're very optimistic about it. If that vote is approved, then we will start working on what that formal agreement looks like. And obviously have to get our attorneys involved, their attorneys involved. And I think it's gonna happen pretty quick, because I don't think that they want to, with the dissolution, I don't think that they want to drag that out, nor spend a lot of money on attorney's fees. So yeah, we'll know more in, I guess, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, less than 4 weeks. And we'll have some, if the vote passes, then we'll happily have some legal work to do to get the agreement in place. The revolving loan fund would be part of the Catalyst Fund. It would be a different color of money specifically used for loans. We'll determine what those parameters are, just as long as we're transparent to the IDF board. And the way the proposal reads that we would have it at low or no interest, specifically focused on workforce housing. And I think we gave them a range of AMI that was, I think 60 to 140 is, if I'm not mistaken.
Mike, I'd like to commend you for your diligence on this. I know you worked really hard pulling it together and pulling folks in to present. And I think being there, I think the group presented a compelling argument. And I heard that independently from Jim Morehart afterwards, or separately in another conversation. So I just want to recognize Mike for his hard work on that.
Yeah, and again, it's very much a team effort, you know, I get to go present, but there's a big team that's supporting us, so thank you.
But it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't taken the initiative. So I think that's a very big deal for the RHA.
And to finish about the Catalyst Fund, round two, the applicants have been notified if they are to receive funding or not from the Catalyst Fund. We have 3 projects, Animas, South Fork, and West Side. That this round 2 will come out to $195,132. So that means that Catalyst funds dispersed to date will be at $383,052. So again, in this round, there were 2 preservation projects and 1 new development. We expect round 3 to take place in March. A press release will be going out next week and we'll be tapping Pat for a quote on that as well. If there are any other directors that would like to be featured in that press release, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll be getting that out next week.
Anything else on the Catalyst Fund?
Question?
Excuse me,
Mark.
Mark, did you have anything?
Yeah, just a quick question. Round 3, is there any discussion on the next round?
Yes, we are going to be tweaking the rubric just a little bit again. This last round had some applications that made us realize that we needed to tighten up a couple of things. So our working group will work through that, we expect in February, and we expect to have the next round open by March. So we will have a spring round. What else on the Catalyst Fund? Yeah,
Thank you.
that's, I think that's
You
it.
want to announce the 26th panel? Did you do that already? The
I
chat-
did,
Oh, you did?
yeah, the Chapel panel, yeah. So that webinar is coming up. Just floated out of my head.
Hey, JJ, budget submission to DOLA.
Yeah, so obviously the budget was approved last month by the board. So we just wanted to inform you all, get it on the record that it has been submitted to DOLA. We haven't heard back from them, but they get a lot this time of year, so I would expect it'll be a little bit before we hear back, but we don't anticipate any problems there.
2024 goals tracking, Sarah, Tober.
Yes, our goals this year. Again, I use the strategic plan to help inform our goal tracker, and it's a little bit of a different format. It's Eva meets Marsha. I included both of the formats that they preferred last year, so hopefully this one will. So hopefully this will meet our needs in terms of outlining what the action is, who's responsible for it, the priority of it, the status, the start and the end date. We will have more notes on these as we really start diving in. But I wanted to get this in front of the board to determine if this meets the needs for goal tracking for 2024. And again, anything that's not represented in this goal tracker that is in our scope of work with the Alliance is represented in our director report, things like the rental assistance program. That has been a directive of the board to support, but it's not an RHA initiative, so I didn't have it reflected in the goal tracker.
Any thoughts or comments or questions?
Any milestones, you think, or just, I mean, I look at the list and it's.
The steering committee is gonna be huge. Getting
Yeah.
the committee to put their finger on a funding source and say, this is what we need to pursue is going to be the biggest milestone of this goal tracker. we will talk a little bit more about strategy 3. Kevin had some ideas and so did Pat, and I think we're gonna have a good integration of that, but we really won't touch on that until 2025.
Sarah?
Yes.
Marcia here. Kevin's in the room, I believe, and I just wanted to touch base, and I don't know that we have to wordsmith, but this idea of the create a policy environment is something we support 100%. Internally, we're committed to it. Kevin had a couple ideas that we shared beforehand. Again, I don't know that we have to have it mean this goes another month. I did want to point out, and I see that Shaq Powers is on here, and this is probably something we should potentially have as a standing agenda, at least in terms of updates. As everybody recalls, there's SB 213 last year in last year's legislative session. It went down in flames, and instead of SB 213, we now have an ADU bill, a transportation bill. I don't know if I haven't seen the water bill yet, and then something called a strategic growth bill. And I did a bunch of reading last week. It looks like there could be, this is all, I mean, the legislature just started yesterday. We may have a mandate coming down from the legislature to do planning on a regional level, meaning multi-county. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend I am happy to send you anything that I have from our lobbying organizations, but I just want to put that goal, it's on page of the strategic plan, strategic priority number 3 in some context, that we may have some very serious mandates coming down. I think the big debate is going to be obviously if it's incentivized or mandated. And so I know Katie tracks on this kind of stuff, other people do, but that may all get changed based on what the legislature does. And of course, we need to be vocal about that.
I think I'd like to circle back on the strategic plan here in just a few minutes when we get to that particular line item. Because we did have a back and forth today between Sarah, Kevin, and I on that. But let's finish on goals. Do we have anything else on goals for the group today? Hearing none, 2024 meeting schedule, JJ?
Yeah, absolutely. So last month, the board did approve the dates for the meetings, but the locations were left to be filled in. This is on the very last page of your packet, that exactly placed. And so feedback from the board was they would like to travel to Ignacio and Dayfield at least once a quarter. So I spoke with Katie and with Mark. They put up with some very poorly worded emails from my part. Just the whole quarterly and monthly thing got a little bit difficult to communicate. So what you see before you is the hopefully finalized version of the meeting agenda for 2024 with locations filled in as well. So if it is good with the board, then we will start posting those and working to getting rooms booked and all of that.
Any thoughts from the board? My only comment is I'm not going to be here next month for next month's meeting. So Marcia, or I guess whomever is vice chair appointed at this meeting will have to conduct the meeting. I'm going to be in Vietnam, so we'll be here.
And so then we'll start getting calendar invites out to everybody. So you can probably expect a decent slew of invites, since we can't do it in just one block now since our different regions. Perfect.
And then following up with Marcia. Marcia, are you suggesting that we should have under alliance updates, a legislative update as well as a standing item?
Yeah, but you know, we've done this before, and I'm just speaking for myself. I immediately find that I'm not an expert in all of it, and there's lots of questions. You know, we don't have a lobbyist. There's nobody that's in charge of government affairs, which is entirely fine. Everybody has their plates full. But maybe we could just bring stuff up, have it as a standing item, knowing in some cases it might be as short as like, hey, I'm going to share this email. Because I found, and I don't know if Jen's still there, it just immediately, you're just waist deep in details. And so, the more, maybe we just need to be like, have a high level awareness of what's happening. And then if somebody really wants details, they can get an email later, but just throwing it out for discussion.
Jen, quick, simple suggestion. We could invite Housing Colorado to come to a meeting and or track their events, because they're the industry for housing, and we'll cover other issues, but well, I guess you're a housing agency.
And
so
we
that
are a
would be the
member of them.
Yeah,
like
so I
RHA
highly
is.
recommend we just figure out how to use their materials and.
Okay.
But also inviting them would be really cool to a meeting and having them do a formal update. The second thing I'd say, Marcia, is Kathleen's very involved in the legislature, and the board of the alliance is as a, he's involved in all these bills, so those are other resources we could pull in.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Any other thoughts or comments from the board? Hearing none, so JJ, if you could just add that to the agenda for the coming months. Appreciate that. So now we are on decision items, and the strategic plan is front and center. Who wants to take lead on this?
Okay, I'll go ahead and take the lead on this. So just to kind of go over steps of how we got here today. You know, again, we had the board retreat last September, October, okay. And that was facilitated by Clark with community builders. You know, we had some challenges in getting what we needed from him and from the strategic plan. However, we were able to kind of take over the strategic plan in the 11th hour and help get that over the finish line. We feel like the strategic plan does reflect the immediate and pressing need of finding a sustainable funding source. It does it pretty well especially as we use that as a reference for our grant, for our goal tracking. The strategic plan does have in the third initiative, it does talk about the policy aspect. And this is something that the RHA has identified previously. It was in kind of our grant tracking, our goal tracking last year as well. We just can't quite get to it until we have this sustainable funding source down. So we had, you know, initially Pat had said, let's just take that out of the strategic plan. That was not reflected in the changes that Clark made. So it kind of ended up getting just scooched to the back burner to 2025. And then upon further reflection and some of the emails that we exchanged today, we determined it's a good thing to keep in there to signal to the state that we do understand that there is a need for us to address this countywide within each jurisdiction as well. And let them know that we are working on this for Prop 123 purposes as well. However, because it is tabled to 2025, we don't have to necessarily make movement on it at this time. So the concept that Kevin put forth is that in 2018, 2019, when this topic was last approached, the pulling together the full group of folks didn't have quite the outcome that they had hoped for. And so his recommendation was that actually our RHA takes the lead on creating a policy paper that would help outline for the jurisdictions recommendations of best practices within land use and zoning. So each jurisdiction would have their own capability to implement this on their own behalf. Pat and I felt like that was a good idea. We felt like that was solid. And it's very similar to kind of like what we're doing with the 3-year workforce housing strategy, where each entity we're listening to each voice, we're getting data from each voice, each entity, but then we are housing that information, we're compiling that information, and then we are providing a report back to everyone that they can reference. So it'd be a similar approach in that manner.
Kevin, do you want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, I guess the strategic priority number 3 it really related to the concept of having some kind of committee or working group. We sit down with the communities and kind of pick at the codes and policy and plans, and we got a taste of that a few years ago as Sarah or two in the city of Durango, and I think go particularly well, because I think what you have is a lot of passionate folks, but they don't necessarily understand nuances of the various plans, policies, regulations, how you get to regulations. And it just made sense to me that we just articulate as an organization, what is important to us? What are the things that we feel are necessary that all the codes and plans and policies should have in them across jurisdictions? But leave it to the jurisdictions to go through their public process in dealing with their working with their electeds and their appointed officials, and let them come to conclusion on what is acceptable to them, rather than kind of this felt and it was all well intended in 18 and 19, but it was kind of a little bit of a wrestling match with opinions. And we didn't get to an outcome, and that might not necessarily indicate it was a bad idea. It's just a very cumbersome process, whereas I think the municipalities are all set up to do their own policy making and regulation creation and adoption, working with their specific residents. And so if we articulate as a board what it is important to us, we disseminate that to the various jurisdictions and let them come to conclusion on what is acceptable, not acceptable, how far they take it. It makes more sense to me than kind of, okay, City of Durango, it's your turn. Okay, Ignacio, it's your turn. Okay, Bayfield, we're coming next. And I think that's just a lot of energy resource that probably doesn't need to happen that way. And certainly this is iterative too, right? It could evolve. You might find that our white paper isn't enough, so then it is maybe some deep dives with the staff, the jurisdictions to suss out some of this stuff a little further. But it isn't let's create a committee to evaluate your jurisdiction's policies and regulations. So.
Well, and this came up and it really got motion today, literally today. But I think, my recommendation initially was just to eliminate, because at earlier meetings, each jurisdiction said, well, we're kind of where we're at in our own process with regard to land use and planning and comprehensive plans, et cetera. But the Prop 123 requirements, I think, are such that we ought to at least keep it in the plan with modifications. I really like Kevin's suggestions personally, but I'd love to hear from the rest of the board what your thoughts are.
Well, I like the idea of synergy with best practices, right? I mean, there are some things that have already been vetted and done, and maybe we've tried them here and they didn't work, and we should try them again, and not just discredit things that have happened here before. But I think it is a little bit of pressure right now with the priority needing to be the sustainable funding source. And it felt a bit intensified when we first were reading the first versions of like, well, these could all go on their own paths. They could be their own, item and category within the plan. And so I think this version, I'm starting to see the bigger picture now. Because I did know that you guys had those conversations before. And I think, we had expressed at the City of Durango, I mean, we're hiring internally. We have a position now that's part of our code reform administrator's role within our organization, and also to stay abreast of some of these things instead of getting so behind on a lot of these things, and really trying to do that proactive stance. And I think we want to do it, holistically, where it is more of a region, but we also have different dynamics, different boards that we're all working with, and different elected officials in different capacities and different time constraints, I think, with how we navigate that. So that adds another layer to it. But I think having something in there that shows some progress, since we all have opted into Prop 123, is a good reminder of that. So
There's a lot of overlap here also with, let's say, the 3-year workforce housing investment strategy that's being updated, the annual report that's coming, and all the municipalities are all doing a lot of things that some of it is bubbling to the surface in terms of what we talk about on a monthly basis. But the level of detail that Eva has swirling around and working with Lily and code amendments and all that stuff isn't really that obvious to this group, but the communities all know what they got going on, and there's a lot going on. And I think it would be best to have that level of detail understood before we even go into something.
yeah, right. Jen had her hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to go through with the board first.
Yeah.
If Any other thoughts from the board itself? Okay, Jen?
Quick comment, if you keep it in, I like this conversation, it's beautiful. If you keep it in the strategy, it's gonna support your DOLA grant,
Yes.
right? Okay, you already said that. Yeah, that's. good.
That's why,
Okay, sorry.
that's why it was the intent to keep it in when I
Sorry.
said to take
Nice
it.
job, Pat, just reiterating for you.
And I would suspect it wouldn't take but a couple of editorial adjustments here to leave it in here, but with the intent understood in terms of process.
Yes, yeah, pulling directly from your email.
So this is my opinion. I think that the citizen believes that it's just really easy for us all to have the same code. But it is horribly complex, and there's not one code, unless we all started the same day on, January 1st of, 1900. It just doesn't happen because we're just such different communities. So I agree that basically best practices is better, and then you can find a way to link that to our code versus becoming the code.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the code thing? My only thought was, even within Durango, we authored the Three Springs Codes and Standards. So Three Springs has a separate set of codes and standards from the city of Durango for various things, not everything, but various things. So that just makes it turn off.
Well, and I think too, like we've learned a lot about what happens when code is too prescriptive. Right, and
Yeah.
they talk a lot about that with Senate Bill 213. And so I think one of the creative ways that we're sort of approaching it is what really needs to be codified, what can be in a resolution, what can be policy driven, so that when a market condition changes or funding becomes available, you can actually create incentives a little more quicker than you have to do with doing the ordinance and going through all of those processes that take a significant amount of time with the noticing and the public requirements for publishing and things like that. So we're getting more creative of trying not to have as much codified, but more, administrative, some support there with, what can we do at the staff level versus how many meetings do we need to have and things like that, so that we don't have to cause it to be more of a burden for those that are really trying to build housing units too. So, which is the definition of fast tracking. That's right.
Any other thoughts or
Incremental.
comments on the other
To get
pieces
there.
of the strategic plan?
The other pieces are specific.
The other goals, I should say, the strategic priorities. Because you're asking for adoption today with some slight modifications to priority number 3, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So I know that Reporter Norton provided some comments, and one related to the vernacular we're using in cases like, is it regional? Is it county-wide? Do we stick with regional knowing it's just county-wide? There was just some things like that I'm wondering, does that get integrated in here? Or I still see the word regional all over the place, and maybe that's fine if there's collective agreement, that is fine. We just define regional because we're the Regional Housing Alliance, but we're really talking county-wide.
I mean, we really are just talking countywide, but I think the use of the word regional was because of the name of our organization.
Might I suggest that we just use RHA when we're referencing regional?
RHA and then countywide, if it's a.
We weave that in or define it so that it's.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking that too with the 3-year workforce red lines, because I was questioning that too, because it felt broader than our reach. And I was questioning like how regional was being used there, and it was the same context I was thinking in here.
So we'll replace any
Countywide
use-
seems to be,
any use of the word regional in here, we can replace with countywide or RHA where applicable.
Another one of the kind of wordsmith things was workforce housing, affordable housing, below market housing. And I think they're all intended to mean the same thing. I might be wrong, there might be context in certain places in here that it means something different. But generally, it'd be nice if we were using the same terminology across the document, because it's not that big of a document. And if it is intended to mean the same thing, we should probably stick with that.
We'll make sure that everything reflects just workforce housing as the term.
I would caution that. I would say that it should include affordable and workforce housing, because the RHA has within its, and tell me differently.
Mhm.
Within its authorization, it can participate and sponsor low-income tax credit housing projects.
Yeah, I think this is why we started using below market housing with all of our stuff 2 years ago in the 3-year plan. And that's maybe not working for you all, but I would not throw out affordable, I'd keep it all. Maybe at the beginning, you just say, we go back and forth with these terms, but here's who we're gonna serve. You know what I mean? I don't know. Cause it can get a little dicey, but I wouldn't throw out affordable again.
Okay,
Yeah, I would leave the terms in too,
okay.
because then we can, in case we have to be flexible to hit another program and it's in the language.
Well, so long as it's understood what the various terms mean and it's not for your off the street reader, they're not. Is that the same thing as what I just read? And they don't really know that. And, you know, if this is meant to be more of an internal document for us, that's one thing. Or we have definitions somewhere that explain what they are, but I think it's important that it's understood that these are different nuanced.
I'm gonna do 2 seconds because this is so important and I don't think you all have heard this before. Workforce housing implies that if there's a fair housing challenge. Why is there a fair housing challenge? Because you're only gonna help people who work. We have people in our community with disabilities, blah, blah, blah. So I actually was involved in the beginning of a lawsuit in Warringford Valley because of this stuff. So I get what you mean, your heart's in the right place, but be very, very careful. So that's why we use below market, affordable, and those other terms.
I would suggest that we have a table of contents or a set of definitions, for the document that outlines this stuff. And the reason, Kevin, not only for the BITEC program, but you know, the reality is we have a workforce that needs 30 or 40% AMI housing. That's the reality in our community today. And it's not just 80 to 140. Candidly, it's probably 30 to 200 if you really looked at it. I just want to make sure we're expansive enough and we're thinking of the entirety of the workforce that we're trying to address.
I'd recommend go back to below market as the overarching, and then in the very beginning define everybody who's below market right now, which I think is about 160 AMI here. And then use affordable as affordable to everyone. You know what I mean? So we can play with those terms, but I think that'll keep you out of trouble. And every time you do a document, a plan, you're gonna wanna call out your target markets, right? And you're probably gonna wanna be as expansive as possible because your role is to facilitate funds and we don't even know what's coming to bill, right?
Yes.
It's constantly changing, so.
And we can refer to the AMI charts too.
So,
that we
yeah.
have.
so there's enough going on here that I would suggest that we complete the wordsmithing and bring this back next month for final approval, because we've got a lot of small moving parts. Excuse me, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. You know, similarly, I was thinking along the same lines there and a little bit behind the curve, trying to get Jen and Sarah comments on the 3-year plan update that they're working on. And I see a lot of similarities. This strategic plan is a great document, but I see a lot of parallels between that 3-year plan and the update that they're working on and the strategic plan and the updates that we're trying to incorporate there. I'm almost wondering if we wait till we get the 3-year plan update and see what language in there that might help us in our strategic plan. And one area that I commented on in the 3-year plan update was we talk about gap financing in our strategic plan, but there's a need for construction financing or revolving loan fund or line of credit, which Michael gave us a good report on $950,000 in funds that are coming in, but that's not enough. So I just wonder if that's another area that in our strategic plan, we want to talk about the need for some line of credit construction financing. We're seeing grant funding to cover infrastructure now, but moving from that horizontal build to the vertical build is really a challenge finding funds for that type of work that's needed. So just a couple different things there. One, maybe it's prudent to wait a little bit and see what the 3-year plan update might bring that will help us update our strategic plan. And I would push for maybe some more information on the need for some construction financing for some of our projects. Thank you.
Sure.
Chair, one thing I would caution against is this strategic plan is gonna be really important for the steer committee. If we don't have a plan for the board, we can't really ask a group of leaders to help fund us. So while I agree that some of these edits need to be made, and I'm happy to spearhead those, I would say that we should be very close to the place of passing it by next meeting, so that if we have a steer committee meeting at the end of this month, we're gearing folks up, we're letting them know we're finalizing our strategic plan, we can then provide it for them in February. Versus the 3-year workforce housing update may be February or March. And so pushing that out while trying to engage a steer committee, I think would not be very synergistic.
I agree personally. I think we should adopt the document in February. I think we're close enough and we worked through this at our retreat. Mark, I appreciate your comments and maybe we can weave some pieces in here. But the other part for me is that I think it's important to show the state and folks that are funding Prop 123, we've got our act together and that this is a document that we've approved collectively. And I just think that sooner we do that, it's another, tool in the toolbox with the state personally.
Possibly.
Yeah, I think this is a great discussion. And just one point, I think we're moving forward on implementing the strategic plan. And then I think what we're working on is just getting the words, to the point we're all comfortable. But I just want to affirm that it doesn't feel to me like there's anything in the plan that people are having heartburn with now that we've really talked through that code stuff. And so I think that's important. And obviously the steer stuff is our priority. Back to the regional thing, I actually would advocate to leave regional in there since it's in our name, and just right in the beginning, have a sentence that says regional means regional within La Plata County. Let's not make it too complicated, but if we take regional out, then we basically said we're taking our name out, but just say region, intra-regional or whatever. Some people may not know what that means, but interstate is between states and intrastate is within the state. So I kind of always use that, but whatever you guys think is comfortable. But I don't want to really drop the word regional, just maybe define it that it's within a county.
Because we will have a glossary of terms, we could include that in the glossary. That way, any reference to regional is clearly articulated as countywide.
Perfect. And can you get this out within the next couple of weeks? I know that's pushing it, but that way it gives everybody a chance for input and finally adopt in February.
Yeah, I think we can. And then also just looking at our timeline, our next meeting would be on the 8th and our DOLA grant is due on the 15th. So.
Sure. Yes.
I personally don't have any issues with this document as it stands today, or with some minor tweaks being shared with a potential steer committee. I don't think it has to be an adopted document before they get it. It could be covered with a draft, and then they understand that, at the next meeting, we're intending to take action. So we don't want to hold up your process for sure.
Okay.
I don't know how everyone else feels, but.
I would agree.
Okay. So I'm comfortable sharing this in draft form with the steer committee, excuse me. And great. Okay, everybody online comfortable with that? Mark, I see the thumbs up. Great, Mark, thank you. Okay. Next item, officer election. Who's taking this one?
I can.
It's the weekend. JJ?
Yeah, I can start with, just reminding the board where we're at. So currently, obviously, Pat serves as chair, Marcia is vice chair, Mark is treasurer, and then in kind of avant-garde move, the board actually elected the organization of the La Plata Economic Development Alliance as secretary last year. So that's where we stand currently. The relevant bylaws towards all those positions are included in your packet on the page 28, yes. Page 20, that's just a section of the bylaws that pertains to elections and officers with duties and descriptions and such, so. Normally, it's suggested that you start with chair and then work your way down the list, but that is of course up to you guys. It would by the bylaw just say that we need a nomination, a second, and then a vote.
Do you have a point of clarification? So I understand chair, vice chair, but technically it's president, vice president, is that?
Yes, yeah, so the two terms are, we have documentation on this somewhere, the two terms are used interchangeably.
I'd like to make a motion to have Pat continue on as the president
Second.
board.
I got the short stick today.
Didn't present it right.
Obviously, you have an opportunity to take a different opinion on the matter, but I do believe that Pat, you serving in the chair / president role brings some level of credibility that maybe, not to take anything away from the local governments here, but you're not part of the bureaucracy, so I think that is beneficial to us. Plus, you bring such vast knowledge and experience from the private side to this that I certainly appreciate having you in the role you're in.
Plus you helped start this, don't you want to finish it?
I don't know if anything ever gets finished. So anybody else, question, comments? So would this be the same slate? Are you suggesting the same slate as?
I was only making a motion on the chair for starters or the president for starters.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? I'll abstain. Okay, it passes. So we still have vice chair, treasurer, and secretary.
I would make a motion just to keep it as it is.
So there's a motion on the table to keep it as it is. Is there a second?
Second.
So the motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Well, Marcia, you're stuck. Mark, you're stuck. Staff, you're
It's an
stuck.
honor to serve.
I would note in the document that you provided, that's the Article 1, Article 2 of the RHA, has the order and conduct of business. It has public comment next to last on our adjournment, and we always have public comment, up front, which I think we should allow folks to come and go instead of having to sit through the whole meeting if they need to. Just pointing that out. We don't have to take any action. Okay. In H3, resolution 2024-01, public notice designation.
Yeah, so this is just a procedural resolution. So every year it is required by the state that governmental bodies make designate the public place for their agenda and meeting schedule and such to be posted, as well as meeting minutes and all that. So this is almost identical to the one passed by the board last year, with just some dates changed. The current location, the current public place designated is the RHA website. That URL is also updated, with a backup place listed as the Durango Chamber of Commerce, just because that is where staff's offices are located. It's the easiest to access. That's just required to be there in the event of, I guess, mass internet shortage.
I make a motion to pass resolution number 2024-01.
There's a second.
Second.
Eva Beaches, sorry. So there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Resolution 2024-02, local capacity grant application.
Yeah, this one, Jen, you might be able to speak on this one a little bit more, but my understanding is that this one is. As staff is applying for a grant, we need essentially just documentation saying that the board approves of us applying for said grant, and so this would skip that role.
Here at the beginning, what was the beginning?
Hmm.
Sorry, give me a little more.
Oh, this is the resolution that we worked on, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's the local planning capacity grant program.
Yeah.
Yeah, and DOLA asks or requires that there is a resolution passed by the housing authority supporting the grant application. So,
And is this where you were also saying that you need support letters from each?
yes, they're the same grant application.
When's the deadline?
February 15th.
Okay.
We'll
And it-
send out
and-
templates.
Yeah, we're gonna provide templates, yeah.
And Patrick shared he's pretty excited about this one. You might be one of the only or only regional applications. So again, back to your land use conversation, part of the 200,000 would help share some of that technical assistance that we're talking about.
And the town of Ignacio, as a local agency at our meeting on Monday night, also authorized us to submit this grant with DOLA.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. We should have all our bases covered for this particular grant requirement with the passage of this resolution.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Mark.
Make a motion to approve resolution number 2024-02.
Second that.
The motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, passes unanimously. Thank you. Discussion updates, grant matrix, Sarah Swartz.
All right, thank you guys for responding for your bits of little information. I know it's really early in the year and no one has applied for grants. We are gonna slightly. I'm slightly changing the format and I would love any and all feedback on this. I thought it'd be really important to start tracking the funding bodies as well to see kind of who we're applying with. And hopefully who we end up getting funding through. And then, so each month I'm gonna send you guys just your own little spreadsheet. This is my current plan. And it'll also is tracking what the projects are for. So then we can kind of have a little bit more streamlined look at this. And so it will still have the funding opportunities. If you have a new one, you can send me the information and I can do a little more research on them. But primarily you'll each be getting your own little spreadsheets with similar options.
I don't have the
Question for the board. What period of time do we want to reflect in this? Because you may apply for a grant and you'd be awarded in 2022, but the reality is it doesn't get funded for a year or the project doesn't get completed for a couple of years. Is there any thoughts from the board on time frame to be reflected in this?
I would say at a minimum 2 years.
Looking back 2 years?
Looking back 2 years, just because I think it's important to just demonstrate still to the public and transparency. And for our packets and for, materials as we move forward with the steer committee, we're not gonna get every grant. I wish we could. And I think we're learning too, how can we be supportive to each other so that we're not, sort of isolating in one or the other. We're open communication right now with this, within our county-wide region. And I think just for us to understand, like for us with Strong Communities, I did reach out to the program manager, just like Bayfield did, to get an understanding of why were we denied? Why were we not asked to move forward? A big component for our project is that we're in the middle of annexing it in. And they really just vetted through, I guess, a variety of the projects and that scored against us. So we were not asked to move forward for that. They are guiding us to go towards the more housing now through energy impact or the energy office, which I feel like they're going to guide a lot of people to that. And Patrick Rondinelli did say that he could meet with us individually to kind of guide us through that. It does have some unique criteria other than, it doesn't have the location criteria, but I don't quite know if the project's ready for that one yet or not either. That grant application, I think, is March 1st to April 1st for that one.
So Sarah, the amount received should probably say amount awarded.
Yes.
And then Cause that's what the public assumes, you get a $2 million grant, you get it, but it's a lot more complicated.
Well, is the board comfortable with looking back 2 years on the grant matrix? I actually think it's a really good idea, especially for the public that's reviewing this stuff, that sees the activity over time.
Well, it might not be common, there could be circumstances where a grant goes longer than 2 years, and if it's still open, we should probably keep
Keep it on the
well,
list.
it's still a live grant. So 2 years, or if it's an active grant.
Maybe 2 years from the award status
I would probably say more the application
or
status,
application
Yeah.
and
status.
then if they go longer. If it's still active, maybe keep it on.
That's all I was thinking.
Closed. Yeah, that would be
2
good.
years plus if it's longer, if it's active.
And would you like them all on just like that first page?
I
Or
think
do
it should
you
be
want
by
it kind of
year.
like by year, like broken up historically more? 'Cause
Well,
otherwise, I mean, it'll be a very long spreadsheet at some point, but.
Yeah. It could end up being too long, too hard to read.
I would personally like a one shot, sheet summary. If you can get it on one sheet, and it's not too small, so my old eyes can actually read it. But, that way, people's, their attention span is short. So, give them the facts up front, and then if you want to provide detail on later sheets to that.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mark?
Yeah, I would agree, Pat, on that comment. Maybe the notes could be an attachment to the matrix, but keeping it on one page is helpful. And I was just gonna let Sarah know that Ignacio has grants in this matrix. My reply to you was that there were no changes, so I don't see any in here, but we have two grants in at least that I can think of. One is
Okay.
funded, one is not.
I'll make sure to get those in there.
Sorry for any confusion.
No, you are good. I apologize for missing those.
And maybe the same for the county, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I provided kind of a comprehensive spreadsheet of all of our financial dealings over the last year and a half, 2 years, that we can probably glean some of that back into here. The other thing that is happening is, the county's playing a slightly different role than the municipalities are, because the county's maybe is a fiscal agent, or maybe it's providing a grant to Bayfield or Ignacio, and should those be listed here as grants? I mean, it's not a state grant, it's not a federal grant, but the county's providing a grant. Out of, at this point, it was ARPA dollars primarily that we're dealing with. But it does show activity and.
Yeah.
To your point.
I think absolutely, yes. We should show every dollar that comes in from any source.
And Sarah, I'm not sure if you were on that email from yesterday or not, but I'm pretty sure Sarah Tober was. So if you could, Sarah Tober, too many Sarahs in there. Share over maybe what I provided. It was on the 3-year first housing investment strategy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who was all on that email. There's a number of people.
Yeah. Might have been on
And you can kind of, tell you what, I'll just forward it.
I would love.
That might be just.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yes.
Thanks, Kevin.
Any other comments or thoughts from anybody here or online about the grant matrix?
It's a lot of work and I appreciate it. And I actually have used a previous number a lot when I'm talking. I think I have this right. It's from a previous packet that we have received 10 million as a set of entities. And, just people always say, what do you got? What is the county doing for housing? What are the jurisdictions doing? And so it's great to be able to have those kind of numbers in my head.
Okay.
Right. Next item, Prop 123, Eva.
I'll be brief. Currently, the Department of Local Affairs, I don't know if anyone gets the Colorado Municipal League newsletters that came out. They're really informative. They've got little snippets of things. But the Department of Local Affairs is gathering stakeholder input on Proposition 123, requirement to expedite review of affordable housing, which will take effect in 2027. The stakeholder engagement process is in early stages, and DOLA is seeking to understand the needs of and gather input from valued stakeholders. Local government planning representatives, the developer community, and other key partners are invited to give input through this survey to help inform DOLA's guidance and materials. Please take a few minutes to share your perspective, and the survey will remain open through Friday, January 19th. It provided a link that I can certainly share with the board. The outcome of this effort is that DOLA will publish guidance and present informational workshops on the Prop 123 statutory language and present different approaches to accomplish expedited review. DOLA appreciates your input, insights, and time to support this important effort. So if that's okay with the board, I'll share that link with you all if you didn't get it already, and encourage you to complete the survey.
Great.
That's all I have.
That's it?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Next item is member updates, La Plata County. Kevin, Marcia.
Kevin, you go first.
Well, I think we covered a lot of what we would have to update. I mean, the adventure in has been a big lift for a lot of county staff to get that thing moving forward, and commissioners took action on it earlier this week. I've spent a fair amount of time on the documents we certainly were talking about today, the variety of documents. So that's going on. We're still working. We need to ramp up our tying things up with Bayfield and Ignacio on assisting with some of the grants we just talked about there. So I think globally, those are the things that we have going on. Certainly, Marcia, if you have anything else.
Okay, thank you. Town of Ignacio, Mark Clark.
Oh, well.
Ah, we see a picture.
Takers.
I'm gonna let Mark take it from there.
Well, obviously that was before it started snowing, but Canyon Construction's on site and they're making good progress on all of the utility infrastructure that's going in. You can see a water meter, in fact, right there, water hydrant in there. So the work's underway. We're pretty excited. They fulfilled what they said they would do in terms of mobilizing and getting to work. So Rock Creek infrastructure is underway, and I'll just continue with work in progress on Rock Creek. Continued discussions with Fading West. They're anxious to see an order from us, and they have about a 5-month, 6-month lead time. So the sooner we get an order in, the sooner we'll have houses on the ground. Ongoing work on the construction financing. I keep harping about that. Sorry if I'm a broken record there, but it really is kind of a hindrance right now, trying to find that short-term financing to cover a down payment with Fading West so we can get in the queue, and then also have the ability to go vertical once this is all done. And I've been meeting with First Southwest Bank. I have a call here at 4 o'clock with TBK. So that's ongoing work. I want to meet with Michael and see if he has any recommendations on some avenues for that type of financing. Also working on construction services support, construction services RFP. If we go with Fading West, they deliver a unit, but there's foundation and then stitching that's needed to put units together and finish the product for the home buyers, and have some local interest, and just trying to put together a team that can start working on foundations and getting ready for that type of unit to land on it. We have some interest, as I mentioned, and that work's ongoing. Working with Lisa Bloomquist Palmer at Homes Fund. They are working on their home buyer training and pre-qualification stuff, and they have identified homes in Ignacio. I need to complete a website that kind of denotes our product and what we're working towards, but have a visual appearance other than a site plan and some conceptual rendering. So with that, Homes Fund will be able to direct potential home buyers to that site, and hopefully we just continue to build momentum for 21 home buyers within our subdivision. And there was one other thing that I had, but it has slipped my mind. Meredith, can you think of anything else? One other thing was the town board. We've had some interest on some of our vacant property, so we're going to put an RFP out offering our property for projects development that have economic development benefit and housing opportunities, workforce and affordable housing opportunities. So that will be out here in February. Maybe there's an interested housing developer that would want to come in, and we could create a public-private partnership with them for utilization of our lands. The thing I was going to mention, Kevin mentioned it, and our project has some room now for utilizing county funds and our IHUI dollars for the vertical component, being that our infrastructure estimates and contract came in under our project budget. And we're still trying to refine where those dollars can go into the project. So once I have that figured out, both between IHUI and the county, we'll formalize our request and get that into you. So that's all I have. Thank you, everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Member at large, I'm going to speak to Durango is considering an area plan amendment next week. It involves a project that might become or might happen, assuming a lot of different things happen, as Tree Farm Village. If you recall, this board approved a letter of support for that. I plan to speak personally in favor of the project next week in front of the Durango City Council. But I just wanted to check to see if the board was comfortable with me speaking on behalf of the board. And I know Durango needs to abstain from this discussion, but the reality is, we did provide a letter of support. And are you comfortable with me representing the?
It follows what our initiatives are. I don't have a problem.
Katie, do you have? Okay.
The only thing I would ask is that you get consistent with how that letter is read relative to who was participating in the discussion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Clark or Mark or Marcia?
I
Well,
just
like, you know-
concur with what Kevin said. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Nope, go ahead.
I concur with what Kevin said, and it sounds like you have that covered.
Okay. So I may, if just full disclosure, I'll probably take a two-pronged approach. One will be representing the RHA, and one will be personal comments, and I'll clearly distinguish those two, so it's clear in the public record.
So if the city takes action to not go contrary to the planning commission's recommendation, which was denial, and they approve it, there's the possibility that they submit a project. And it's a joint planning, so there's the two planning commission cities as a one planning commission. So the county is still very much involved with this process. So that's where Marcia and I have to, be very careful about how we.
Good point. Good point. Appreciate that clarification. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you. Town of Bayfield.
So we're putting together, continue to compile a RFP for builders for Cinnamon Heights. That's kind of something we've been working on. The mayor canceled our last meeting in December and our first meeting in January, so it's been a kind of a nice break for all of us. And we're kind of catching up with a lot of things that we needed to do. I think that broadband, we're gonna have the ribbon cutting for broadband in Bayfield tomorrow afternoon at noon. So we're gonna see a lot of people really excited about getting connected to Clear Networks, so. Everybody wants it. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Perfect. Anything else?
We've been in meetings.
Good for you.
It's a refresh.
City of Durango.
Well, we're relocating. I'll start with that. Big move. We are community development and our engineering offices are moving out of River City Hall. We've been going through 50 years of archive and data and papers and documents, and notes and file cabinets. I never have looked at so many things before. And lots of fun archive things like a city and county affordable housing plan back in 1996 and a little dust on it.
That was before mine.
Just, I'm like, there's just quite a bit of fun things to find. But yeah, so we'll be at the former Big Picture High School building starting on Tuesday. It will be called the Community Development and Engineering Offices Building until it becomes the Civic Center campus. So I think we're gonna be planning on doing an open house. I don't know what that entails.
Yeah, the open house is the 9th of February from noon to 3.
I'll have to have my office.
So
put
that'll
together
be
by
the
then. Okay.
ribbon cutting. And then there's a couple things that the city has done that I'm pretty proud of, and one is getting the municipal court going. And we hired a full-time judge, and then if you guys recall, the gal who was in the paper outside the Schrader, she went to trial and she got 45 days in jail. But since we don't have a probation department, we don't have a lot of auxiliary social services to help her, at least in the police department, we'll be able to filter her to agencies to help. So that's what we're looking for, is, try to do something with our homeless population, since we don't have a whole lot of avenues at this point. So I think that's really positive with our court system. And then the other thing was, I guess just moving into the, moving forward with the Civic Center concept. And then I think we're looking really positive with the, our meetings with the U Tribe and moving forward on some of the larger projects. But other than that, I think it's going to be a good year for the city.
Housing stuff, let's see, so we'll be going before council also on Tuesday, so I'll have to make sure I'm like put together after moving and trying to unpack my office. But to add to the grant matrix, I didn't think about this, but we are the pass-through agency for Homes Fund for the Community Development Block Grant. So the city and Homes Fund were awarded $1.8 million through the state. We were approved and got our notice of award. In May, we got our grant agreement right at the end of the year. So that's great. So we can certainly work with Sarah to update that, but we'll be taking the resolution before City Council to appropriate those funds to the Housing Fund. And we work with Lisa, it's like a 3-year term grant for their down payment assistance program to help fill the gap for first-time homebuyers and entry-level buying. And then we're continuing to work with Root Policy on our inclusionary zoning program. We're working now with Clarion Associates with Don Elliott to help write our code and our administrative manual for the program. We've identified our dates finally, so we'll be going before our new Community Development Commission. So our Planning Commission is going to be dissolved. We'll have a new CDC sitting in February, so we're going to wait till March. I think that's the best time to kind of take it, let them get onboarded, get settled, and then be bringing that before them, and ideally have that approved and adopted before City Council in May when the Housing and Urban Development numbers come out. This has been a 2-year process that will be a very big milestone for the city of Durango to have a new program in place. And then we have 2 housing projects going before City Council in February. One entails, actually both entail annexation and set aside units. So we're busy. But just a couple of things. Oh, also the Leasing for Locals program. We have a couple more units remaining in that building to get leased up. So I'll send that to the board as well if you want to share that out with your entities, post it in your break rooms, things like that. We do have a couple more 2 bedrooms remaining that are 80% AMI. That's the rental rate of $1,667. So I'm kind of surprised we haven't completely got the building leased up yet, but I wanted to send it to the school district too, Chris. So I'll send, if I can get into your guys' newsletter with the school, that would be great. I think Karen said you guys do those on Thursdays.
Yes, so that how the content is due, they go out Friday.
Okay, so if I can get it next week's, that would be great. Send it to you. Okay, lovely, great.
What is the market rate now? We go for 60 to 67.
2,400. I think it's just the timing, getting the certificates of occupancy, getting the program out and live, logistics of Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's not like we had the wait list built before we got the program built. So it's, giving ourselves a little bit of grace here with getting the logistics and working through the details. But very exciting, that added another 30 units of affordable housing to our community. The rental subsidy program, another innovative idea that we've never done before. And navigating that and getting it off the ground is a heavy lift, but really proud of it.
Congratulations. Anything else for the board? Hearing none, this meeting's adjourned.
Me and Babe go next.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Great work.
Thanks all.
So I have the reminder.
The reminder.
Oh, it's Ignacio.
Yeah.
Not Ignacio. We're in Ignacio the next month. Okay.
So Marcia's the after. I get reappointed president, now I'm there at the meeting.
I don't know. I don't think I'll be here in March.
I think so too.
I'm gonna take a vacation.
You're not
very.
I need to take a vacation.
Absolutely.
You do.
Yeah, see you Tuesday.
I realized we never got your signature on the bylaw.
So much.
Danger,
Major kids.
sweet boy.
Major's daddy. Just he sticks with me. If I have a recent picture of that.
He's so cute.
That's. So this is him. He's the daddy.
Oh my goodness.
Daddy.
So cute.
Thank you again for the work on that resolution.
I love it.
I am
A lot of resolution.
No, I was thinking about. Well, they all gonna grow up.
Yeah. 4 years to government.
I
It was actually a skill I never thought I would be chapters there. It's so great.
It's like so good. Like when you're like, it's just the procedural document, it's like, oh.
You can see how he's mixing us too. He's so cute.
No, I never know whether or not to be.
I just found out who got the.
It's sad that most of the resolutions there get in the past.
Nothing.
But yeah.
I think it's good. I mean, you're doing a great job.
I know, yes.
Oh, shoot. Are they?